Nice tie, Falvey. The Twins went out of their way to not play a game Monday, and Tuesday, when they got out of bed and played one, they couldn't score any runs. The good news, the Braves didn't score either, and you can't lose if nobody scores. This and other revelations once we all get nice and locked on Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to source for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Imperial Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe where applicable. I'm Dave Brown, an MLB writer since Derek Falvey was in boarding school. I'm also a BBWA member and a Hall of Fame voter. Side note, I don't like to vote in primaries because you have to declare a party, but I have voted in them anyway. Across the Great Plains of cyberspace, the frozen plains, the frozen tundra, is Brandon Warren, who was voted most likely to spend his disposable income at Poshmark. Brandon was a Twins fan who became a Twins writer, and now he's both as the site expert at Puckett's Pond, a blog about the Twins. Go read Puckett's Pond today. On the podcast today, we mentioned the tie, the Twins and the Braves. It's always a rematch of the 91 World Series. I think about that every time they play. It's a hack response, but I have a hacked brain. So they went scoreless. Woohoo! What is this, like a soccer match without Messi? You know, they say that spring training games have no meaning, but what they mean is the team's outcome, who wins and who loses, doesn't matter. There's all kinds of stuff that happens that does have meaning. For example, Ryan Jeffers working on his hitting so his results look more like 2023 than 24. Or maybe so they look like April of 24 rather than the rest of 24. But is he even focusing on the right thing? Also, Joe Ryan and Brock Stewart are set to make their debuts this week after injuries ended their seasons early in 2024. Stewart might even pitch today. Ryan also was a prominent subject in the first episode of The Diamond, a periodic video series the Twins produce. We mentioned it in passing in our recent show. We'll talk a little bit more about it today. Some people cynically call it propaganda, and while it literally is, it is propaganda. There's useful information and entertainment to be gleaned from its content. And that is what is on the show today. Brandon, how we doing? The Twins tied the Braves. It's believed to be the Twins' first scoreless tie in a Grapefruit League game in at least 2 decades. They don't even know for sure because they don't really keep track of that stuff very well. It's not that important, but we like to have those nice little data points. So Ryan Jeffers didn't play, but recent story Bobby Nightingale did about how he's trying to work on his batting. And I like Ryan Jeffers' conclusion about how his numbers look last year. I think if you look, they weren't as good. He didn't hit as well as he did in 2023. But 2 things. One, if you compare him to the other catchers in the league, he still compares very favorably offensively. I have some numbers here.
107 weighted runs created plus last year, which is I mean, that's above average for anybody, let alone a catcher.
Yes. But he ranked 16th in FWAR. A lot of that is defense. That's why it's that low, which sort of cannibalized my point there. 5th in WRC Cola Plus among catchers with at least 300 plate appearances. 2nd in isolated power, so he's hitting for power. Tied in 5th in home runs, 13th in walk percentage. That was 3% down from the year before. And notably, and this is addressed in the story Bobby Nightingale did, 27th in BABIP in batting average on balls in play. So he was, at least going by that data point, he was really unlucky last year. And he wants to work on making his luck better hitting. My question, though, is for the second straight year, his framing was not good. His WAR on defense is dragged by his overall WAR is dragged by his defense. Bobby's been on it this spring. His story didn't even mention defense with Jeffers. Isn't that where we want him to be improving, really?
I mean, It's a valid question because and I look at his offense too, and like he had a 359 batting average on balls in play in 2023, which is well above what you would expect for an average, and 238 last year. So if you split the difference, his career mark of 280 is about right there, and that's got him a career weighted runs created plus of 106, virtually in line with last year. So I mean, offensively, maybe who he was last year is just who he is. And again, I've talked about it though, where you have a stat and a player doesn't really represent it because they're hot one part, then they're cold the other. And then the final output, they never really resemble at any point in the season. So there is kind of like a dueling dichotomy of like, maybe this is who he is as a hitter, even if that's how he never looked last year, coming up on 1,400 career plate appearances. What do they say, about 1,000? You kind of know who a hitter is for the most part. But defensively, yeah, I have to be honest. If I was gonna evaluate him defensively, I was a bit disappointed last year, and I don't know. I think it more along the lines goes along with in 2021, he only had a 199 batting average, 270 on base, 401 slug, which again, good isolated slugging. If people don't know, that's basically your slugging percentage minus your batting average. Just gives you a feel for extra base hits and that sort of thing. But his defensive value, he was plus 9.5 runs on FanGraphs. He was plus 3.5 in 2022, minus 1.2 in 2023 when he had the offense to compensate for it. And then last year he was 3.0 positive runs, but minus 2.5 defensive runs. And so, yeah, it's definitely trending in the wrong direction defensively. And I think we don't know how much that's going to matter into the future if the ABS thing does take off like we expect it to. But that still leaves a whole year where you kind of wonder, where did this defense go? And so, yeah, I wonder if, maybe the offense should be a boilerplate, back of the boilerplate situation and, maybe improve the defense. Again, maybe he's doing both and Bobby just wrote the story about one and not the other. I don't know. But I would say by hook or by crook, we're going to find out a lot about him. I mean, he played 122 games last year. He's going to play a lot this year. And then the Twins kind of have to decide what direction they're going at catcher, whether it's Jeffers longer term, Diego Cartaya, or something else altogether. So it's going to be a telling year. And I think the fact that he's looking at offense as opposed to defense is it's curious to say the least.
Well, I mean, the Twins do need the offense as a whole to be better than it was last year. I mean, that's where we mentioned how they had so many games where they didn't score. They scored 2 runs or fewer. They were 10th in the league in runs scored, but they still had a lot of games where they didn't do anything. So, right. It's not. I don't know how unusual that is, actually.
Same concept, though. You never actually resemble your team. You either score a lot of runs or you score no runs, and it says you average 4 or 5 runs a game, but you never really felt that way.
Right. Jeffers, and we talk about how if you break down Jeffers' seasons by like month, he was awesome. Like most of his value came in March, April, and then a lot of it came in May. And then he got hot again in August. June and July, he completely disappeared. September, he completely disappeared. That isn't that unusual, but they just need his when he's not hot, they need his floor, his seat, to be a little better. They need him to not quite tank as much as he does. He doesn't have to be hot all year. Nobody can be hot all year, not even the very best of the best. But
how much are we hyper focusing on how bad he was down the stretch because the whole team was bad, and so like any player who could have elevated or helped them would have been a godsend, and anybody else who contributed to the downfall you kind of view less favorably. You think there's maybe true. Some of that to it? There's
some of that to it, although I do remember, because we do this show and we kind of hyper focus on everything
right
frequently. I remember in June and July kind of wondering where Jeffers went, and he started a lot of games. He didn't start all the games at catcher, but Rocco did a thing where he would play him at DH a lot and hit him second, and he played like a whole bunch of games really early, and I just wonder if maybe, even though he wasn't catching all those games, if that wasn't a bit much, sort of overexposing, kind of like how they did with Willie Castro, because there wasn't really anybody else to take over. The other guys were hurt, and other guys weren't hitting. So what else are you going to do? So maybe there isn't a change really to be made there, because there was no better alternative.
Right.
But I wonder if that had something to do with it as well. So he was not very effective away from target field. He wasn't all that effective against right-handed hitters. So if you look at, there's improvement to be made. And I think defensively, where I'm complaining here, the last 2 years, his pitch framing, according to StatCast, really dropped. And the thing about it is,
he was great.
He was really good at it.
Yeah.
Until like 2023. He started in 2023. And I remember asking him, I think that the Twins started the season last year at Kansas City, where I am based out of. And I went to those games, and I asked him about it. I'm like, what does this mean? Where, is it a case where it's just kind of statistical noise? And that's how he looked at it, that he didn't think his pitch framing really got worse in 2023. This is Jeffers speaking in early 2024, that it was more, he's better than those numbers showed. But now this is 2 years in a row where his pitch framing really not good. His throwing guys out, his pop time is good. So his athleticism is still there. His arm is still good. He has value on defense there. If he could just be a little less inconsistent hitting and a little better pitch framing, he would be a super duper valuable dude. And maybe we just, catching is really hard, and maybe we just expect too much from the catchers. There's a lot to do back there.
He's set the base, the base high, the baseline first with his debut in 2020. I mean, a 122 weighted runs created plus, then 137 in 2023. A catcher with a 106 weighted runs created plus is a nice luxury. And then defense, besides, you've got one of the maybe 10 to 12 best players behind the plate in the game. But it does leave you wanting more if you've seen better, and wonder if you can get him back to that level.
There's another stat here on defense that I don't really fully understand. Adjusted earned runs saved. It's at Stats Info Solutions, which is known colloquially as Fielding Bible. Patrick Bailey led the league with 15 runs in adjusted earned runs saved. Jeffers was neutral. So even with the pitch framing not being what it was before, he did not have a negative effect on the Twins team ERA. He didn't have a positive effect either, but
right.
It wasn't, he was zero. He literally a neutral effect on it. So for all of this talk about Jeffers' defense, it didn't hurt the team. It just didn't help it as much as maybe we would like. So I think maybe that's the best way to phrase how he's doing on defense. It's not the end of the world what's going on back there. We just kind of wish it was better. But
yeah, I think that's fair.
So what's going on? What else is new? Joe Ryan and Brock Stewart are up, and Matt Canterino is down. Joe Ryan had his Terry's major issue. He's been ramping up, and he is going to pitch on Thursday against the Yankees. Brock Stewart had his surgery, shoulder surgery last year. He is going to make his debut today. He is scheduled to in the Twins game. So that's the good news. Matt Canterino has a shoulder strain though, and of course we've talked about Matt before. Just repeated injury issues, and you talked to him at Twins Fest live, and he's trying to hang in there, but it's getting harder for him to deal with the constant setbacks. What's your take on Matt Canterino's latest setback?
Well, it's got to take a toll on someone psychologically, even the most well-rounded, well-balanced person, to deal with that much failure that's outside of your control. I mean, a lot of failure you can fail a lot of ways. Believe me, I've kind of figured out every single way you can. But when it's something that, when it's your body that betrays you, that's another layer of lacquer to put on that. And so when it was a brief conversation we had, and he's just like, we're going to give this one more chance. I don't know if he meant like, if we have another serious arm injury, it's over or what. And this is a strain. I don't know if that means, 60-day IL is in play here. I would guess maybe it is, in the event that they need to add some non-roster player at the end of spring training. It's hard to say, because with pitchers and arm injuries, like there's the power down process, the ramp up process, and pretty quick you've burnt through 2 months, and that's 60 days right there. So if they decide a non-roster player is going to make the team, that's the route I suspect they'll go. And they're going to be very careful with him. Very, very, very careful. I don't know how much more careful you can be, though. Like, how much longer can you have him on the 40-man roster and not contributing? And again, it's not because it's, any character defect. I hate when people call or act like injuries are a character defect, like Sean Murphy opted to get hurt for the Braves and everybody was ticked about it. Like, it happens. And
it's the nature of the activity. It's pitching is very difficult on the body.
And so Canterino is a very thoughtful, very smart guy, and he'll land on his feet with whatever he does after baseball. I'm just, I'm hoping it's a while from now that he has to explore those alternatives. But, he said in his article with Dan Hayes, he's a realist. And so I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's some writing on the wall that, like, he's closer to thinking about that being it than anything else. But again, I don't want to oversell a strain, because a strain is serious, but it's not Tommy John. It's not reconstructing your shoulder. It's not thoracic outlet, but it's not good.
Yeah. And it's a situation where I saw a couple of tweets from Twins land yesterday, sort of speculating on, well, was it a good idea for the Twins to lose, Hedrick and Enriquez, expose them to waivers and keep Canterino, considering his injury history? And I think that's a little, confirmation biasy and a little unfair and a little after the fact, in a sense that, he's certainly got more talent than those guys. The upside with Canterino makes it, to me, not a no-brainer, but it certainly puts things in his favor when you're.
It's a worthwhile gamble.
Yes, a worthwhile gamble. Now, anymore, like if they had to do it again, or have to make that decision later at this point, now that he's already been injured this year again, I think that that maybe that's a reason to go with a different player. But I'm not going to, there's plenty to question as far as things that the Twins do in their front office and the decisions they make. I'm not going to do it yet with him. I think that's how I would have done it, just based on the arm talent.
Yeah. Nice waiver usage, Falvey.
Right. So can we take our break? Is this a good time to do that?
Yeah. Let's do that. And when we come back, we'll discuss the diamond. I really have enjoyed that so far. And so we'll get down to that, because I have a theory or something that I saw that has since been confirmed, but more on that in just a moment. Well, before we roll on, we do have to tell you about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I know I was keeping an eye on the Clippers-Suns game last night. Suns came back from way down in the end of the third quarter to actually beat the Clippers. The Suns have had a lot of things go negative for them lately, so that had to feel good. Well, with FanDuel, you can place live. Beg your pardon?
Ishbia.
Yeah, right. Great trade, Ishbia. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback like the one that the Suns had, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, look for those SGPs. You combine your live bets into a same game parlay that's the trick. You can multiply your winnings quickly if you make a couple correct picks, string them together, and win big. Right now, FanDuel customers, new FanDuel customers, I should add, can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. After that, check out the app. It makes it super easy. But first, you got to go to FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets if you are a new customer and that first $5 bet hits. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
We are back. Locked on Twins. Wednesday, March 5th. Opening day is coming pretty soon, actually, for the Dodgers and the Cubs. They'll be going to Japan next week, I believe.
What is it, 10, 12 days, something like that?
Something like that. And it's, I don't know, kind of a big pain in the butt. I mean, it's good to grow the game. I mean, think about how, like, valuable the country of Japan has been to the sport of baseball in general, and specifically Major League Baseball. I do actually kind of feel bad for some of those fans over there because, Sasaki and Shohei and Yoshinobu are no longer over there, and they don't really get anything for that. They're kind of we're just kind of raiding the cupboard.
Did you say Suzuki too?
Did I say Suzuki? I said Sasaki.
Seiya Suzuki will be there too, right?
Oh yeah, he will. Yeah, with the Cubs.
I mean, it's a nice representation for them.
And Shota will be there as well. So
Imanaga. Yeah, he's really good.
He is. He's a lefty. He's a crafty lefty. So
we got Kaufman Stadium coming on.
No, I'm fine. I have had a cold this week.
But
not anymore. I'm fine. Thank you though, Brandon. A couple other things I wanted to mention before we talk about the Diamond. It's been noted that there's going to be Friday night baseball games in the first half of the season on Apple TV Plus, April 11th, April 18th, and May 9th, my birthday. So these are games that are not going to be on MLB TV, and you have to get a subscription at Apple TV. There's a lot of chasing going on. Not to, people don't want to sound like boomers on this, but sometimes there's a lot of chasing going on to get all your Twins games broadcast.
Yeah, it's a little obnoxious if we can be candid.
It is. However, it's 3 games in the first half, and presumably there would be more in the second half. I guess are they going to do a schedule in the second half based on how the teams are doing? That's kind of smart, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But Apple TV Plus, if I can just it's a pretty good service. They have good original programming and good other things that you can watch. That's like the only place you can watch like a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
I was actually going to say Charlie Brown is the thing that we get it for. And then, the one with I still haven't watched the whole thing or even really much of it. The coach, the soccer coach thing, Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, right. So there's more good programming. It's one of those streaming services that's worth it. I think some of the bloom has been off the rose of HBO Max, which is now just Max. And I think some of the bloom has gone to Apple TV Plus, according to the analysts. So, you have a 7-day trial, and so far you'd only need like 2 months of it's worth it. It is a pain in the butt. Yeah. But if you want to see all the Twins games, that's what you got to do, aside from something that is not like gray area legal. Stream East and all that. So just something to think about when the Twins play April 11th, April 18th, and May 9th this year. The only way you'll see those games, and maybe more, the only way you'll see those games is if you buy an Apple TV Plus subscription. So the Diamond, we've talked a little bit about. We referred to Rocco's big pregame speech. I got excited for it. He's like, if you think big this year, be ambitious. That was the word he used, and I like that. That's why I put it in the headline. Be ambitious for this year. And just because you don't make the team in spring training doesn't mean we're not going to need you later.
Right. So
I think those are good messages. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about with this show, where, yes, it's produced to make the Twins look good. It's an in-house production.
Yeah, what do you expect? It's produced by the teams. I mean, hey, there's all our dirty laundry. Check it out.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't not waste your time, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it. And there's things to get out of it. You have some thoughts. Do you have some thoughts on Joe Ryan's appearance in the show?
He went bowling. And so that tells me his terrace major must be feeling pretty good. And so this came out on Monday night because I was watching it at gymnastics, not for me, for my daughter. And I just remember thinking, hey, he hasn't pitched yet, but we've kind of kicked around the idea of, is he going to be a little behind? Is he going to start the season on the IL kind of like Sonny Gray did last year? I mean, Sonny still threw like 166 innings, so didn't really hold him back that much. But if Joe Ryan's bowling and, he was doing his little training, they do like these bear crawl rotations and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was like, okay, he's feeling pretty good. But then I saw bowling. To me, if he's bowling, he is feeling pretty darn good to where I'm less concerned than I was maybe 5-6 days ago.
I think bowling was featured prominently last year on the Diamond, if I recall correctly, a team outing or something like that. If I remember, it seems like so. It was. And it's it always makes me want to go bowling when I see like they do it. It's not just cosmic bowling. That's kind of an old term at this point, but the bowling balls were like pool. They were like billiards balls. They, 8-ball and whatever. And they were painted like billiards balls.
That's pretty cool.
And it just, it looked pretty cool, and it looked like a lot of fun. And now I want to go bowling. That's what.
The way the old story goes too is that Kent Herbeck was an excellent bowler, and then he hurt his rotator cuff and basically had to like scrap bowling altogether, and it really bummed him out. Like, there's some pretty great Kent Herbeck lore about like his bitterness of not going to the All-Star game, and obviously the Ron Gant thing, and I think even too not winning a Gold Glove. Like, I don't think he's bitter. I think it was just kind of like right place, wrong time for that sort of
underrated, thing. An overused term, but appropriate with Herbeck.
But imagine if bowling is like your favorite hobby outside of like playing baseball and hunting, and you just have to give it up together because the rotator cuff goes. That's a real shame.
You mentioned Ron Gant, and I was gonna crack a joke that's how he hurt his rotator cuff, by pulling Ron Gant.
Not the time, Dave Brown. Now's not the. I'm just kidding.
Like a weed. Like a weed. He's a man. Ron Gant is a man.
Shouldn't have gone in standing up, buddy.
Yeah, he should have slid, but was that Drew Coble over at first base?
I think so. And the thing I come back to is that the way Herbeck's arm is curled.
Oh, well, I don't even want to hear the end of this.
He's not going to have that much strength to lift Ron Gant. He did not. He aided Gant, but Gant's momentum was the downfall of Mr. Gant.
It doesn't take a lot of force to push anybody off a base.
Well, maybe you should have slid then. And it was pull. He was pulling.
maybe the umpire should have got the call right. Can you tell? I wasn't really rooting for the Twins in that World Series, but I wasn't against them. But the Braves were a great story that year because that was the year they came out of nowhere. I was pulling for them to go, to complete that story.
I just love that pitching staff, and that was pre-Maddox.
It was.
I don't know if a lot of
Maddox wasn't added until '93.
I don't know if a lot of fans now realize that was Avery, Smoltz, and Glavine. And Avery was just a baby, wasn't he? I think he was
he was
second-year guy, rookie, something like that. And then they had, I don't even remember who was after that. I know they had Alejandro Pena, Pete Smith.
Charlie Lebrand, of course. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, that's
I mean, I'm not saying that now. We're not leaving yet. We're gonna leave in a second. But I was just referring to Kirby Puckett's home run.
Back to the Diamond, though. Yeah, I think people might call it propaganda. Those people suck anyway. But for a club produced product, it's solid. Like, the production value is pretty high. The Twins do that kind of stuff well. I think it starts back with like their commercials.
Yes.
If you want to go down a wormhole or a rabbit hole, I don't know which is more pertinent here. Look up Twins commercials from like the late 90s and early 2000s. Incredible. We could do an entire episode. It's not quite to the level of like, remember the This Is Sports Center commercials where they'd have like a mascot sitting at the desk doing their TPS reports, and then they'd be like, we got the Syracuse Orange in here typing up a script for the show. It's not quite to that level, but as far as a regional commercial, it's pretty dang good. I'll send you some of them. They're hysterical.
No, yeah, I've paid attention through the years to Twins commercials. I think
Torrey Hunter hitting the piñata and knocking it out of the room.
right.
It's a good commercial.
The Mariners are the team that from a national standpoint gets the attention, and it's not undeserved. But the Twins have had very good commercials, and there's a tradition of that. I mean, that's kind of a thing about the team that I think future generations of marketers want to live up to. The Twins have a reputation for having good commercials, and I think if it's a wormhole or a rabbit hole, either one of those are probably appropriate for Herbeck. I think, depending on what season it is.
Well, he also created a divot the first year at Target Field. They were having like an old timers game, and he slid to make a play on the first baseline and dug up the grass a good, I don't know, it looked like about 6 inches. Like it was, Larry DeVito was probably up at night thinking about that. By the way, can I say something here? Thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. But for your second listen, make sure you check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew Ane. MLB fantasy draft season is here. I got another one later this week. I'm working through my score sheet right now. Just got Chris Bassett in round 5, so that's pretty exciting. But you can be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Twins on YouTube and Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Well said, Brandon. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Twins. For Brandon Warren, I'm Dave Brown, wishing you all a very pleasant good evening, no matter what time of day it is. Saying that we will Alexei Casilla tomorrow. Yep.
Night.
Good night. Alexei.